standing here this evening. Nearly 10 years that we've lived in Ovado, we've celebrated many community gatherings, milestones. It's quite remarkable standing here this evening, today observing the first yahrzeit of my father, the 28th of Shvat. I'm here with my siblings. And this evening, the 29th of Shvat, as the sun sets, watching you become a Jewish woman. According to Jewish law, there are certain mourning practices that are put in place during the first year of mourning to honor our parents. For example, in our long drives of carpool, the kids like to listen to music, but this past few months of carpool, I have not been able to enjoy the celebratory music that we play in the car. But now that mourning has concluded, and I get to fully celebrate. The first yahrzeit is significant, as it's brought in the good books, because the first yahrzeit's aliyah, the ascension of my father's soul, is now having a solid place in Gan Eden, a place of permanency. And as his neshama is getting comfortable and settled, he has a view from on high, and I'm sure this evening fills him with great joy. I'm not sure if you know this, Hadassa, but my father loved astronomy. As a chemist, he would actually send me an astronomy picture of the day. The galaxies, the planets, the moon, he marveled at. So the Talmud tells us that the Jewish calendar cycles around the moon. In the words of the Talmud, Yisrael monin lalavana. The Jews count to the moon. But the Talmud continues with a rhyme and says, Yisrael monin lalavana, we count to the moon, vidomin lalavana, and we are compared to the moon. And there are two reasons why the Jewish people are compared to the moon. And both of those reasons I find to be very relevant this evening. Number one, just like the moon, it reflects the light from the sun and then brings that light of the sun to the world. The Jewish people, we are tasked with being a light onto the nations, to take the light of Hashem and bring it to the world. Also, just like the moon waxes and wanes, the Jewish people also have had period of our history when it was more on the waning side, and then times and periods when it was more on the waxing side. Right here today, the 28th of Shvat, I saw the waning of the moon of my father as I observed the yahrzeit of Rabbi Ben Yaakov, and this evening I see the waxing. My oldest child taking on herself the old mitzvot, becoming a bat mitzvah. Tonight when you leave this evening, if you look up, you'll see beautiful stars, but you won't see the moon. As we near the end of the Jewish month, tonight is the 29th, the moon seems to have disappeared, to be covered and concealed, only to be reborn again on Tuesday. The same is with our holy people. Time and time again, people predicted our people's end. And like we saw in our recent history and story of the Holocaust, yet our Rebbe stood strong. And when the moon seemed to all but disappear, he showed us how to grow. Stronger, mightier, prouder than ever, and bolder than ever. In the praise that we sing on Hallel, on the new moon, on Tuesday and Wednesday, we sing a song from King David. The words are taken from the book of Psalms, when David says, Even ma'asu habonim haita l'rosh pina. The stone that the builders rejected became a cornerstone. And what David means by this verse, the commentaries explain, is that when the prophet Shmuel was looking to anoint a new king, Hashem told him to look and to anoint a king from the sons of Yishai. So Shmuel went to Yishai and asked to see his children. The first of Yishai's sons, Eliab, was tall, strong. Shmuel was certain that it was him. But yet the oil would not pour from the jug. So they go to the next boy, Avinadab. The same thing happens. 7 boys went in front of Shmuel, and the oil didn't move. Shmuel turns to Yishai and says, do you have any more? And Yishai's boy says, we have one more, but he's in the mountains, he's a shepherd. It can't be you're referring to him. And that was David. David was that cornerstone that was rejected. Yet, he built up the Jewish people. He built the famous Davidic dynasty, who Mashiach will come from. He was chosen from everyone else. And it is him who we sing about, David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. David, king of Israel, lives on forever. My father was an only child. His father died when he was just 2 years old. His mother died when he was barely 20. At times he felt very rejected. I don't know if you know this, Hadassa, but he even served in the Canadian Army, but he got kicked out. Even they didn't want my father in it. But yet the Rebbe found my father, and he didn't give up on him. The Rebbe saw a bright future in my father. Hadassa, you are becoming the cornerstone of our family. You are a crucial building block for the Jewish people.
I second the motion.
In 1982, my father went to visit the Rebbe, one of the several times that he was by the Rebbe. And my father was there when the Rebbe was giving out a Tanya. My mother received the Tanya. Both my in-laws were there on the Rebbe's 80th birthday to receive a Tanya. And as my father's turn came, there was 2 piles of Tanyas that the Rebbe was giving out. One was a brown Tanya that my mother got, but my father, who had blue eyes, really wanted a blue Tanya from the Rebbe. And the Rebbe just at that moment switched the piles that he was giving out and handed my father this Tanya. And this was one of my father's most prized and cherished possessions, this Tanya. And he wanted to make sure that I had it. And I shared it with my children. When I met the Rebbe, as a young child, and as a dollar that you just received from Zaidi, I received a dollar from the Rebbe as well. And the first thing that I noticed of the Rebbe was blue eyes. And I, as a child, had blue eyes also. And I turned to my mother and I said, the Rebbe has blue eyes like me. And the Rebbe, I was pushed down the line, but then the Rebbe called me back. The Rebbe gave a blessing to my mother and looked at me what seemed like an eternity. And I have no doubt that when the Rebbe looked at my father, and when the Rebbe looked at me, he saw you. He saw the building block of the Jewish future. In the Warsaw Ghetto, shortly before the Warsaw Uprising, this was April 1944, there was a recorded account of a Passover Seder in this place of hell on earth, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. The child is sitting at the Seder table with his family, and in the Haggadah asks his father the 4 questions. After he concludes the 4 questions, he turns to his father and asks, Abba, could I ask you a 5th question? To which the father says, Fred, ask. Why do they hate us so much? I don't know, my child. I don't know. Could I ask you another question? Fred, ask. Will you be here next year, Father, to answer my questions? Will I be here next year to ask the questions? And the father thinks, and turning to his child, his father says, my son, I don't know. But what I do know is that Jewish children will be sitting at Seders and asking these questions around the world. Because Hashem's promise to David HaMelech, to King David, Shelo yichbeh neiro le'olam va'ed, that his light, David's light, the light of our people, the light of the Jewish people, will never, ever be extinguished. Hadassa, your friends, both within the community, your classmates from school, you are the dream of the Jewish people. You are that proof that the light of our people is strong, brighter than ever. As my mother said, coming from Tunisia, where her father wasn't given the opportunity to be able to learn Torah, barely being able to have shoes on his feet, you are that proof of our eternity. I'm telling my father, and we're looking around the room, and we can proudly say, for the future of the Jewish people, that the Jewish people is strong. My bracha to you, Hadassa, and the l'chaim, is that you grow to be someone just like your mother. Emulate her kindness, compassion, love, dedication, and care. I wish that you give true Hasidic nachas to our Rebbe, our leader, and our Nasi. And know that whatever you put your mind to, Hadassa, and you put your heart to, you can accomplish and fulfill. And that know that your father and your mother, Tati and Mami, are always here to guide you and at your side to support you. L'chaim and mazel tov. Ladies and gentlemen, dinner is served. L'chaim, pour a glass, say l'chaim. L'chaim.